Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back, everybody. We are in the Ghost House, Denver, and this is La Kwaxiru. I am your host, Eutimia Cruz Montoya, aka Tia Timi, hashtag Tia Timi, and I am here all Sundays at 5:30. Oh, no. Oh, it's back. To talk about all things love. So if this is your first time tuning in, welcome. The name La Kwaxiru comes from the Eutimia people when I was there about 10 years ago, practicing Chinese medicine, translating with my mentor. That's what they named me. And they started calling me Kwaxiru. And I'm like, what does that mean? They're like, it means crazy, but from love. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And it was love in all manifestations. So part of the things I did there, my duties, like I watched babies, I pulled needles, I welcomed people, I placed some needles, even though I had not yet been formally trained in Chinese medicine. So this has been a name that's come through with me for a really long time, just kind of how I present in the world as a human being, where everything is like a potential for this fire, this movement, this passion, this place in my belly that moves me forward when I get excited about things. And according to the Maya, that would be part of love. So I am very, very happy to have you here. And now I would like to introduce my beautiful guest. Everybody, this is Ana Cristina.
Hi, everybody. So happy to be here with you all today.
Yes. So we were having a lovely little conversation in a little shop that we're both very close to called Alchemy Ritual Goods. Shout out, Alchemy Ritual Goods.
Shout out.
Check them out on Instagram. So these two beautiful women of color, Flor and La Lenia, have opened Alchemy Ritual Goods, and it is a place where you can go and buy crystals or jewelry, like this pretty thing right here. You can also get healing sessions. I am there every Monday afternoon from 2 to 6 and every Thursday morning from 10 to 2, offering sliding scale healing sessions. And those can be anything from touch therapy, tuina, back massage, to ancestors coming through. So if you feel called, come and get your accessible, affordable healthcare on at Alchemy Ritual Goods and support some local badass women doing beautiful things in the community.
Yes.
So Ana and I were there, and why don't you tell them what we were talking about, Ana?
Ooh, we were talking about, whenever I go to Flor's shop, I always open up and I always tell her, this is what's going on in my life.
Like a florita.
Yeah, I really do. And
Florecer.
that's what Flor allows me to do in her shop. And if you haven't been to Alchemy Ritual Goods, it's really one of those spaces where she's just very much put her soul and her happiness into that space, and you can very feel it vibrating off the walls, and it's very beautiful and peaceful. But I was sharing with her so many of the things that I'm going through in life, of just being in such a high intensity job and then trying to navigate a single life and trying to navigate womanhood. And I was talking to her about
You're doing a good job, Mama.
Oh, yes. Yes.
You're talking about dating
and navigating through womanhood and really coming of age in my womanness, and really just speaking to her. Honestly, in all bluntness, we were talking about periods.
There is no shame in talking about bleeding from your vagina every month. We should be talking women, no shame.
No shame. There is no shame. And we were talking about birth control. And that is such a huge topic of conversation today in mainstream media, in politics, with healthcare that is going on in Congress, everything. And I was telling her, you know what? Birth control is not working with my body anymore. And I think that I need to find a much cleaner, very organic way of birth control. And that's what we were talking about. And, you know, it's very nice to have that space, and it takes a lot to be able to share those kinds of things with your friends.
Yeah. Well, especially when I know I say this a lot on every show, but when the patriarchy, when the system that we live in is designed to make women feel shameful about natural things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel you. I hear you. And I actually get, as a healthcare practitioner, I get a lot of women who are coming in and saying, what do you do for birth control? And truthfully, for the last 10 years or so, I have not used conventional birth control besides condoms. And And I've seen really intense side effects of different birth controls. I've seen women bleed out. I've heard horror stories about getting pregnant even with the IUD, and then that baby fetus growing in with the IUD and having to do crazy surgery all of a sudden to get baby taken, like really crazy stuff. And it's like, well, if your body is rejecting something, pues your body's rejecting something, you know, and then so that we don't get pregnant. And then it's so interesting to talk about just understanding what the depths of feelings and shames and fears are around birth. And a lot of that has to do with the whole single mother thing. And I know my mom has said things like, the only thing women's lib ever did was liberate the men. Because now women have to cook and clean and raise the kids and work full time and do all this. And ¿qué están haciendo los hombres? Like, right?
Yeah.
Or what are the men doing? Anyways, we could go really into that.
We could go on about that. Yeah.
But we do need safe places, and not just safe places, but empowering places to talk about our moon times. I call them moon times as I was raised in indigenous ways. And ideally, we all are going to be bleeding with the moon. When the moon is full, women should bleed. And sometimes you go opposite. When the new moon comes, women bleed depending on your cycle, right? But that's why we call them moon times, is because they're supposed to come like this.
Yep.
Once a month.
And shout out to the full moon tomorrow. If anyone needs to re-energize their crystals, you know to do it tomorrow.
Your yoni eggs. Put them out in the full moon tomorrow. Say some prayers. We can go over specifics on that. So the reason why I invited Ana here today is because one of the things that came up while we were talking in Flor's shop is about Tinder. I was like, oh my God, girl.
Tinder.
Let's talk about Tinder. Tell us about Tinder.
Tinder is very interesting.
For those of our audience who might not know, what is Tinder?
Tinder is a dating app that you can get on your smartphone, and you make a profile based off of your Facebook profile. So it has a little bit of security, extra hoops to go through. So you know that they're kind of real. And you just put yourself out there, and you left swipe if you're not interested. You right swipe if you're interested. And I've been on there for almost 2 years now. Okay. And the adventures have just been incredible, fun and funny and crazy and scary and just overall just intense. It's very hard to put yourself out there, and just put yourself out there wholly. And not just that, but laugh at yourself. You know, I'm creating a comical skit of Tinder and my experience. And usually coming from the theater world, which I come from, we make monologues. Okay. And we write monologues, and we do little soliloquies of what we're going through. And instead of a monologue, I want to create a Tinder log of all of the crazy, fun, romantic, beautiful dates that I've been on. And there are gorgeous men out there, beautiful souled men, and it's very great encounters that I've had all over the country, just with my job, being able to travel so much, really all over the world as well, and just really being able to experience men from different regions of the world has been very eye-opening to me, and it's been very, very fun. And I get to laugh at my insecurities in this skit, in what I'm thinking as I'm walking towards the door, and what I'm thinking as they're asking me questions. And so it's very funny and very, very lighthearted, and very being able to like poke at yourself and laugh at your insecurities as you're going there, being very vulnerable to someone who could be a potential partner in life, you know, or a one-night stand, you know.
Would you regale us with one of these stories, your Tinder log stories?
And really, how I open it is my first Tinder date. I was talking to a guy on Tinder, and it was the first and the first swipe that I did right. I was very entranced with this man's muscles and his like everything about him, and when I right swiped, we were a match. And as I was walking over, if you're from Denver, you know where the Cheesecake Factory on 16th Street is. And so you know that there's like those beautiful romantic lights on Larimer Street, and you're walking over to the Cheesecake Factory, and this guy was telling me, oh yeah, I'm 5'9", and he proclaimed it. I didn't even ask for it. It was one of the first things that he said. I was like, okay, standing at a 5'4" woman, I think that I'm going to be okay with this. And I am walking towards the Cheesecake Factory, and as I'm walking towards, I see this hunky man just standing confidently outside the Cheesecake Factory. And as I get closer, he's getting smaller. And once I get to the front door and I see him, I'm face to face, direct eye contact with him, and I'm like, you have to be 5'4" as well. and you know,
I mean, don't they think that when you meet them, they'll figure it out? Yeah, lie if you want.
But where are you going to hide those extra 5 inches that you did not have on you? Which I was like, you know, I'm not all about looks. And I was like, I'm going to proceed with this date. Maybe he's a beautiful person. Let's go. And so we sit down, and he starts asking me so many questions. Like, so what's your zodiac sign? What's your best friend's name? What is your mother like? What's your date of birth? What's your social security number? And I'm like, excuse me? You know, it was so many questions that were being thrown at me, and I felt like it was such an interview. And I was like, oh my God. Is this how everyone is going to be like? And thankfully it wasn't. So that was my first Tinder experience of just like, and I went home with my buffalo wings. I ate like 3, and I was like, I'm just going to finish the rest watching some like Game of Thrones at my house.
Now, is that because the date ended early, or you like he just turned you off so much you lost your appetite?
I did. I lost my appetite. I lost it. And I was like, but then I stayed through sad. Like, you know how it's customary, if you don't know, an hour. I don't. Give them an hour. Okay. Yeah. So it's customary, you know, like any other meeting. Give them an hour, 45 minutes if it's like really bad. And then you can leave. And so then when I was writing the Tinder logs, it wasn't so much about every date that I had been on, but it was the things that I thought and the things that I went back to my friends and I told, and like how I came into my confidence with so many dates that were awkward and weird, and how I reflected on how I could come back into those awkwardnesses and be more confident and be more present and be more bold in those instances. And so I was, you know, it's that learning experience of not just going on those dates, but as how you grow in your womanness and in your confidence going through those experiences.
Right. So what came up for me just now is, how does awkward translate into confident? Like, what is the process that you weave into your experience that creates confidence out of your preliminary awkwardness?
So I've seen awkwardness as silence. A lot of the times when you don't know someone.
Why is silence awkward?
I think silence is awkward in a date because you're trying to fill a space and you're trying to put yourself as entertaining or as funny or as full of life and happy. And so you're trying to fill all of the voids. You know, you never want a silent minute because we've been taught that that's bad. You know, if when you're silent, there's nothing to talk about, you know, that it's like not a good indicator that the date is going well. And so, and silence is not only the awkward thing. I mean, there's so many other things.
I'm so fascinated right now because I'm not a dater. I really never have been. You know what?
Awkward comes in the most crazy things, especially for a girl. Whether it's like you're in the middle of the date and you realize that you just got your period. Or your makeup is like really messed up and you like can feel it in your mascara and you're just very uncomfortable, or your clothes are too tight, you know, like awkward can come in anything. And so I think that awkward, you really have to turn it on its comical heel and really just kind of like laugh at it, you know. Like one time I was I was at this chicken festival. This guy, he bought me a ticket. I think it's called the Chicken Fight.
That's not awkward at all.
No, it's like this. It's this festival called the Chicken Fight, where you go and you eat from like 20 different restaurants, and they're giving you chicken, and you're trying these different types of chicken. And it started raining on us, and so we were running towards the VIP section, and then we were running, and I lost a shoe because I was wearing flats, and I either had to keep going without my shoe, but then I stopped and I was like, wait, I lost my shoe, and I took like my time, and that would have been embarrassing for any girl, but I made it into a joke. I was like, haha, you were going too fast, I lost my shoe. Like, you know, like you just you have to get over it in that moment. And it's a really crazy experience when you're going in that awkwardness. And this was just recent, so I was like experienced in like not making things awkward. I was like, haha, my shoe is missing. So
wow. Okay, so the dating world. So approximately how many dates do you go on a month?
Oh, girl.
This is really exciting for me. I'm like,
how many dates I go on a weekend? No, it really depends. It really depends, because dating, it's like you're putting yourself out there to.
Wait. You keep saying that. Can you unpack putting yourself out there for me?
Because the entire time you're trying to figure out, you're trying to see whether or not you can be with this person, or whether or not you would have a good relationship with this person. Okay. And during that entire time, you're nitpicking at everything that they're doing and everything that they're saying, and you're trying to see. And it's also, it comes with this thing called the paradox of choice. When you have so many choices, you end up deflecting, thinking that the choice that you made was not as good as a choice that you would have made in the future. Could have made had you not made that choice initially. And so when you're dating,
you're like just constantly mind-fucking yourself.
Yeah, you're like when you're dating, like you're thinking, is this gonna be the person that I make the best choice with, you know, are they the best choice for me? And a lot of the times people in their mind, they have that paradox in the back of their head thinking, no, there is going to be someone better. And so when you're putting yourself out there, I am very much so aware of this paradox and of all of these things that are going on in someone's psychological mind. And I'm trying to be funny. I'm trying to be charming. I'm trying to seem loving. I'm trying to seem open-minded. And so putting yourself out there is very much so. And that's just who you are, not to say about the contour that I did 10 minutes before I saw you, like not to even talk about the blow drying that I did before I went on this date, the clothes that I chose to wear, you know, and that is putting yourself out there, putting your best foot forward and trying to see if that person that you're going on a date with could be the one.
Right. I don't know if I believe in the one.
I don't know if I believe in the one. I believe in the multiple ones. I believe in the multiple ones throughout your life.
Mr. Right Now?
Yeah, right. Mr. Right Now is perfect. And if he could stay Mr. Right Now for a very long time, that would be great.
Well, I think the idea, at least for me, it's like you want them to be Mr. Right Now in every moment.
Yeah.
So there's this like constant coming back to choosing them.
Yes.
Right? I can't remember. Someone in my past, an older woman was talking about not ever wanting to get married and like having a contract like every year, okay, let's be together, but every year we revisit. If we do get married, we'll be able to be like, all right, this is the year, do we want to continue with this? So it's never this like all or nothing binding kind of thing. It's always am I choosing you? Am I choosing you? Am I choosing you? Which is, I think, a reason why not to choose the one, like this commitment, like when you bind yourself, when you become married, you have to. It becomes a have to. And I think that's a lot of reason why people break up is because they feel like they have to instead of feeling like they can if they want to.
Exactly.
And when I've lived relationship in a let's keep choosing, as opposed to like, you're my woman and I'm your man, it's like, well, I can't own you. You don't own me. Nobody can own anybody. Those relationships last longer and are more fun.
Yes.
Because it's like, oh, yeah, I actually do want to go out with you today, too. And I want to go out with you tomorrow and the next day. But maybe the day after that I won't. And that's okay.
Yeah. And I think that that's a newfound magic that a lot of women are experiencing. At least for myself, I got married very young. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I did. I got married when I was still in high school.
Really?
I was a senior in high school and I got married before I graduated. He was a year older than me.
Oh.
And I was married for 5 years.
Oh.
And so we got divorced when I was 23. And so I missed this like period of just like coming into your own and like experiencing and figuring out yourself.
Okay.
And so I came into singledom when I was 23. I was a little bit more confident than I would have been when I was 18.
Were you guys together for a while before you got married?
No. We met each other in Washington, D.C. It was like, where do you live? In Colorado. Where do you live? In Colorado. It was like this like magical moment. I was so sad to get divorced because I was like, I love to share that story with people.
I
still share it. He's still a very great friend of mine. When I came into singledom, I was 23. I was a much more confident 23-year-old than I would have been coming into singledom as an 18-year-old.
Okay.
And I just started like running wild and really figuring out like
you were running wild,
like running wild as like running wild. Yes, running wild. But like as a very confident woman, I put my career first, and that really attracted the men that I wanted to socialize with and mingle with. They were very affluent, very into their careers, like all of these things. And then by the time that I hit 24, I was like, I just want to have fun. Like, who cares about these guys that have like successful careers and money? Like, if there's some guy that can like make me laugh, take me whitewater rafting and hiking, be a true Colorado girl, I'm happy with that, you know? And I think that that's also a huge lesson that you have to learn in love, is that whoever makes you happy, that is the person you should go to. It shouldn't matter money, stability, like all of these crazy things that society wants you to conform to. Like if you're happy, everything else will follow. Right.
Well, you said something, you're in your career and you're meeting these men where you're at. So my best friend, we're the same age and we've talked back and forth, and I feel like we're always giving each other these gems of wisdom that we forget about. And at one point, this was probably like a good 5 to 10 years ago, I don't remember, but I was like, and I don't know if this is right, and pontificating whatever doubts I had about I'm Kwaxiru, so I fall in love all the time. And she says, I don't think you should worry so much about the who, worry about the what. And the who will find you there. And it was like, poof. And then like years later, I reminded her of her saying that. And she was like, oh my God, that was such good advice. And so we go back and forth. But it makes so much sense because you place yourself in your happy place, and whoever finds you there, like it'll be seamless. It'll be fluid. It'll just go in. And I can't tell you how many people I've seen in relationship and they're like, but I love him. I'm so in love. But like, you don't like the same people. You don't like the same things. Like, sure, you have great sex, but like outside of the bedroom, can you have a relationship? I've been that person in the relationship that can't have a relationship with the man I love in my life, only in my bed. And that's not fulfilling. And like, you're constantly reaching, well, maybe he'll want to go, maybe this, maybe that. But it's like, ultimately, if you guys aren't aligned on that path together, it's not going to work out. Unless you're somebody who doesn't need that kind of emotional connection. Right. Because, if you guys don't do the same things, maybe it's enough for you to have your relationship just in bed. Right. That's not me.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
And that's fine if that's you, Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me more about your work.
So my work has taken me all across the country. I was so grateful to be able to work for candidate for president. He would have won. Candidate for president Bernie Sanders. And
President Bernie Sanders.
And he was really the greatest guy ever.
Tell me about Bernie. I was so sad when he like deflected to that crazy lady.
Bernie is great. Bernie, he really taught me a lot about being a professional in the political field. Well, first off, he's 6'2", if you wouldn't think it, but the guy is
Really?
so tall. Yeah. And like the first time that I stood next to him and I was like, oh my gosh, you're like, I look up to you and I'm literally looking up to you. And he's great. He's, so punctual. He gets so mad if he's not on time. And it really taught me a lot about just prioritizing your time and really taking into account everything that you have to do, because I'm that kind of person that will schedule one-on-ones right next to each other and I don't give myself drive time, you know?
Yeah.
And so it like really taught me to be more organized, and he was great. We went all across the country. I think I went to like 30 states with him and like over like 40 something cities.
And what was your job? Like what did you do?
So I was it's a technical term called advance, where you go ahead of him. You go advance of like ahead of him, and you make sure that the place that he's going to, you know, how he's going to get in, how he's going to go out, how many people are going to go, if the press is going to be there, all of those things. And so I spent every other day with the guy, and he was really great. And at the same time, I got to meet a lot of the surrogates like Rosario Dawson, Ben Jealous, who's running right now to be the next governor of Maryland, Nina Turner, who's a U.S. senator, so many great people that I just got to meet throughout the entire country.
Wow.
And then I came back after everything went down at the DNC. And I directed a campaign called Colorado Latinos Rise. And I was in charge of making sure that Latinos came out to vote all over the Front Range. So we were out in Greeley. We were in the Denver metro area helping people like Joe Salazar, Daphne Michelson-Janae, and then down in the South in Pueblo, helping people like Jason Munoz and Gail Schwartz. And then after that, I was so burnt out of being in campaigns and in like just giving my all. Because in campaigns, you work 100 hours a week.
Wow.
Your entire life is focused on how many voters you're turning out, voting patterns, things that you can do to increase the vote, all of these things. And so I took a lot of time off in the beginning of 2017. I gave it my all, and I ran a very great campaign. But, you know, the perfect storm happened. Everything that went wrong did. And I just wanted some time with my family and with myself until just recently that I started working again. Very excited that we are going to have a very great governor, hopefully, if the voters elect him, our first gay Colorado governor, Jared Polis.
Ooh, okay.
And so I'm very excited that he's running. As soon as I heard that he was running, I screamed and I got on my computer and I emailed them. I was like, hey, this is me. I really want to get hired. I met him in 2010 when I was still a senior in high school. And he came and visited my high school, and he was talking about being involved and being civically engaged. And I ran up to him, and I was always that politics history nerd, you know, that like person that's like always talking about different wars and like different political issues that are going on. That was me. Like I was that little nerd in high school.
You were so different.
And so I ran up to him and I was like, what are you doing about the DREAM Act? How are you supporting it? How are you going to make sure that it's going to pass? And then he was like, girl, there are so many hoops we got to jump through in Congress. And he sat there and explained it to me, and I was like, okay, that's cool. And so he was the first politician that I ever spoke to, and I was like very excited after I had spoken to him, and he made me believe that all politicians are that amazing. And I've never run into a much more amazing politician than Jared Polis, and he's just very, very amazing. And I'm so excited to be working for him, and I'm so excited to push for him to be the next Colorado governor.
Wow. Okay, so there's a lot there. I will tell you and the audience, I am like a anti-political. Like, I'm just like, there is no such thing as political reform. Like, everything is effed And if we want systems that work, we have to create new systems, rewrite everything. American government is based on slavery and genocide, and they are not for the people, and definitely not for brown people, not for black people. And we see that every day in a lot of things. And actually, in high school, I was a constitutional scholar. I went to East. Our team won second in the nation. We went to DC and competed, and I was like all about it. But one of my teachers, I got in a lot of trouble. Well, maybe not that much trouble, but I was definitely getting dirty looks by the teacher. She was trying to put forth that Andrew Jackson was one of the best presidents. And Andrew Jackson is one of the presidents that said the only good Indian is a dead Indian, and ran genocide campaigns pretty much. And I was like, nope, not having it. He was a freaking genocidal maniac. I hope he's turning in his grave right now. And his great grandma and his great granddaddy and I just like went off. I was like all hood on the presidents of past. And honestly, like I had a little bit of hope with Bernie, but then when all the political bullshit went down and he let it, I was really pissed. And I'm like, oh, great. They give us an inch, take back a mile. Like, I can't do it. So to me, quite honestly, I feel like when people are working in politics, especially people of color are working in politics, I feel like the system is winning by pulling the people that it's meant to hurt into its game.
Yeah.
So
no.
Talk to me about that.
I get that. and I'm very much so a person that I have that in my forefront. Every single day that I go to work, I am reminding myself with pictures, with candles at my desk, making sure that the policies that are being talked about and the places that we're going to, that we're keeping that in mind. And I think for me, the best impact that I can have on this world is in local politics. And going to places like my school board and getting involved with my local environmental committees and making sure that our water rights are safe. And staying in local state government, I think that's where I can have the most impact in making sure that I'm protecting the lands, because Colorado is so different and so unique, especially in that we have tribes that are on our that call Colorado home, and that see the shift, the great shift. Like there's like the Southern Ute tribe down in Durango that, this is where they lived for so long, and then here we are filling it up with so much, and making sure that we are keeping them in the very front of our view and our vision, and making sure that we're honoring the spaces that we're in, not just in advancing and making sure that Colorado grows and that there's enough for everybody here, but that we're also making sure that we're respecting the space that we're in, and that we're keeping it green, and that we're keeping it clean, and that we're not building new oil wells and fracking wells, that we're shifting to renewable energy and green energy, and really trying to make those systematic changes within the system, because that's exactly where I come from. That's how I see things. That's what I go home to. Like the entire world around me is around being brown, being poor, being oppressed, and I go to work every single day reminding myself that I didn't come from more than frijoles and tortillas, and I'm going to make sure that the people of Colorado feel welcomed, and they feel like they're living in a clean environment. Like people in Commerce City are living in a very polluted environment, making sure that people live healthy lives. And I think that that's one of the biggest things that you can offer to people of color, especially when they're here in the U.S., is being able to give them a life with opportunity. And not
Do you
barriers.
feel like you actually see those changes, though?
I do. I do, especially when, and again, all politics is local, and the most change that you can have, in my belief, is in local politics. Okay. Whether it's, one school board member at a time that will give funds to a neighborhood school instead of a failing charter school, or, giving putting on more regulations into oil and fracking drillers around a certain perimeter of communities. It really does take a toll when you're in a community and you can say, no, you have to be this amount away from the people before you can drill or whatever, and so politics, local politics, and also on the ground advocacy. On the ground advocacy is something else. Working on deportation cases, and fighting for people to stay in the country is also another huge thing that I do. And so making sure that we build their cases and bring the community and get the community involved in making sure that that person doesn't get deported. Politics, again, is all local. It's all on the ground.
So with that said, what is your take or what is your information you can offer about the I-70 new thing being built, or the gentrification happening, 20-story buildings in residential homes, people being asked to move? What are you guys doing local politic-wise to help deter that or help people to not be displaced in our communities?
Yeah, no, I know that there's a huge effort in the ditch on I-70 and making sure that people aren't getting pushed out of their neighborhoods. And I think that that's a very huge issue with the people in Globeville and Swansonville and all of those areas. And I think that there should be a lot more attention being put onto it. Personally, I haven't known a lot about it. I do have a really great friend. Her name's Candy Sedevaca, and she's amazing.
I love Candy.
And she's great. And so I always try to work with her and see what she needs from me. And so she is really great about that issue. And again, politics is local, and she's making a change, and she's another Latina that's out there and pushing for things, and for specifically that to again ditch the ditch on I-70.
All right. So I'm going to bring this back around. So this is a show all about love, and we're talking about politics. And I feel your heart. This bothers me. This is in the way of your pretty face. Okay, that's better.
Okay.
And y'all see her better now? Good. Bringing it back to love, obviously you have mucho corazón for your people and for creating change. It's a lot of heart and a lot of energy, and I think even though I'm the person who's oh my God, it's going to take 3 years to say no. And by that time, my mom's house is already going to be demolished, which is this is why I'm so about it, because literally they are after my mother's home right now. And it's really infuriating. And a lot of the people I work closely in the Grow House, which is in Elyria and Swansea, I helped create the place that is there, at least the timbre of events going on there, the cooking class, the health stuff. So it's really hard. I keep coming back to, because regardless of how impassioned one can be about a certain cause, or the fact that I'm politics, schmolitics, it's really inspiring to see someone like you coming at it from this place of puro corazón for your people, of holding that space of no, I'm going with it, I'm going to make a change, to the extent where you're willing to travel all the time. I'm a homebody too. I'm I can't be on planes 3 times a week, or that you're willing to make those sacrifices. So can you please speak to where these passions arise in your body and where it comes from?
Right. It comes from my mother's love. And that's and really a lot of the things in my life really just stem from that. And it comes from her love of me and her working nights and her giving up her body and her, giving up her youth to make sure that I was raised with a good education and was raised with a mindset that we're coming to this country to change the world and to advance our name and to advance Latinos and to advance our entire community. And so I think that a lot of immigrant children come here to the U.S. knowing that they're coming here with a purpose. with a mission and with a challenge of getting over that barrier. And so for me, that's very much where everything stems from, is making sure at every step and turn that I do is my mother going to be proud of the decision I'm about to make.
So thank you. Orale, shout out to your mom. ¿Cómo se llama ella?
Agustina.
Agustina,
That's
hola.
my mama.
Hi, thank you for this. She's beautiful. We love her. That is a really good point, and we're kind of veering away from topic, but I have to speak to this. You're an immigrant, or were you born here, and your mom came here? You were born here?
Yes.
So, my mother's a history teacher, and we're Chicanos. My mother's family is from New Mexico, and we've got a bunch of array of different indigenous people, plus conquistador blood. And then my father's family is from El Paso, and they moved to the Central Valley. And my dad's dad is actually, he just passed away a couple of years ago. His name's Alfredo Vasquez, and he was Cesar Chavez's bodyguard, and he holds the membership card number 1 to the United Farm Workers Movement. And I was a love child of the Chicano Civil Rights Movement. And we were talking about, my mother is a history teacher, right? So she's done all of this work. And there's a man named John Ogbu who did, he wrote a book, and he was talking about different kinds of minorities. And there's autonomous minorities, and those are the ones that are not financially discriminated against, but are kind of discriminated against. And some of the people who fall in that category are gay people, for instance. Like they pretty much can have everything that other people have, or that the predominant class has. And then there was a second category, I can't remember what he called them, and those include immigrants. And so first generation, más o menos, they're like, maybe they struggle, but eventually they'll come up. Now, the lowest caste, I think that's what they call them, the caste, sorry, I'm blanking, the caste part is that they are the sons and daughters of slavery and conquest and colonization on this land. And in order to give them the opportunity to come up, they might resurge, right? So like you give slaves, or rather the descendants of slaves, give them the opportunity to gain some of that capital, then they're going to be like, yo, I have power, give me reparations for all of the years that my great-great-great-grandfather had to work. If you have cotton plantation money passed down from generations, yo, give me some of that. Mm-hmm. And then conquered peoples like myself, I'm mestiza, right? And my ancestors were pushed off the land. We were raped into mestizaje, and we don't have anything. And there are people calling themselves land rich. And if we came up financially and said, yo, give me back my land, that's a fear factor, right? So it is advantageous for the higher classes to keep that third tier low. Right? So it's and I keep hearing you use the word Latino, which I find also kind of somewhat contention with, because that's like a language-based thing, right? Not only was language systematically taken away from people, like my grandma, who was raised in New Mexico, who's like parecía bien india, like super morenita, really native appearing, but Spanish speaking. She was actually beaten in school for speaking Spanish. My grandfather, who was more light-skinned, who was the son of a Picuris native and a redheaded Spaniard. And there was rumor that the redheaded Spaniard bought her from the Pueblo. He went to war, fought in World War II, came home to signs on buses that said, no dogs or Mexicans allowed. And at that time, we were called Mexicans because the border crossed us, we didn't cross the border. It's all very politically skewed, right? But anyways, there's like a language barrier there. So they didn't teach my family Spanish because it was smarter to not be Spanish. Even though they were brown, they were American. They were white. They were English, right? I think my grandma prayed me light-skinned, like literally. So there's a lot. What's coming to me right now is how you're talking about this like hope to change the system. And I'm coming from this conquered place of the system's always fucked me and mine. Mm-hmm. And that's just really interesting for me that I wanted to bring up. So to bring that back to love, I'm not sure like where love fits in. And I guess the opposite of love would be hate, right? Or fear, or this like inability to fully express oneself based on this literal systematic taking away of like my spirit, my identity, who I am. But how important is that anywhere if we're trying to move forward in love?
Right. And I think that we're living
Thank you for listening. Thank you all for listening.
And I think that that's very important when we're moving forward as a community, as a society, is really being able to, and this is where love comes in. Love comes in you loving yourself and you accepting yourself. And for me, it comes in loving and accepting myself, and then understanding the political system, and then being able to move forward my brownness and being able to be the face there, because we have to be one of the greatest sayings. One of my mentors, Marta Valenzuela Moreno, who's a matriarch out in Longmont, she would always say, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And basically, and so where love comes in. What if you don't want to go
to the party though?
Yeah, like what if I don't want to even want to go to the party?
I don't even want to go to the party. I don't like your food.
Yeah, for real. But like you have to come. Self-love comes in that you're accepting your brownness, and I think that so much stems from the times where people were saying, don't speak Spanish because that, is going to get you punished, and look whiter because that's what beauty represents, and I think that a lot of the love comes in self-love, and really appreciating and accepting your brownness, accepting your dark skin, your dark hair, and really being unapologetic and recognizing that there is so much magic in being brown and having brown eyes, and coming from Spanish speaking families, coming from Indios, I come from Mayans, and my grandma, when I went to go visit my grandma, she's a curandera out in Guatemala, and she lives at the top of the mountain.
I'm going to go visit her.
Yeah, she's a partera. She's the partera at the very top of her mountain.
Midwife.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah, and she's amazing. She's really great. And she always talks about loving people unconditionally, and loving the earth, and loving life, and loving everything that's surrounding you. And that's really like when you get into the deep, darknesses of politics, and the hate and the confusion, and just like the over politicizing and the large words, and she makes me realize that love is still there. Because you're still there, and because you're still fighting, and because you're even though you're running into a wall, and even though you're fighting against something that you really don't understand, you're doing it because you're stemming from love, and it's always there. It's always there.
Right. Well, thank you for that. I want to talk about the flip side of that, being a light-skinned Chicana, and like growing up in indigenous ways. It's been very hard to love my skin.
Yeah.
Right. And I got the light eyes. Apparently they come from like a great aunt of mine who was también mestiza. They had Arapaho and Apache blood, but also the Spanish blood. And I feel like it's very interesting because, back in the day, like I remember, I grew up doing danza azteca. And so I was always in ceremony, and like I would get teased because I was la más güerita all the time. And like we went to powwows and stuff, and I would just, little white girl honky. I was like, no, it's not true. And I cry. And I cried to my grandma one day about it.
Yeah.
And she didn't like to be called abuela because it made her feel old. I thought that was funny. But I cried to her one day about it. And she's, cabrona, you be grateful. That's what she said. She's punished me for wanting to be brown.
Yeah.
And she was really brown, right? So I've learned a lot from my dear sister, Lila June. Shout out Lila June Johnston. Check her out on Instagram, Facebook. Beautiful freedom fighter woman. I love you dearly. And she is half Dene and half Scandinavian, but she's very Dene presenting. And she talks about a ceremony time where she went to the Hogan with her mother's people, and her grandmothers from old Europe came. And all this stuff happened, but the first colonization happened in old Europe with the witch hunts. And they killed all of their medicine people. They killed all their women, and that was the fall of the following Roman Empire and patriarchy and this rise of masculinity. So what do you have to do for the men in order to watch your mother be burned at the stake? You have to like detach and hate women. Right. So the first colonization actually happened in Europe by Europeans on Europeans, right? And then they came over here and all history.
Right.
But honoring the rapist in me, like how can I love the parts of my ancestry that did the raping, because that part still exists in me.
Exactly.
It's crazy, right?
It's
and that's like
thing,
this radical self-love where I'm like coming to this place where I've always wanted to be más morenita, like cried, like prayed. I would pray when I was a little girl to be browner. And now that I'm older, I'm like, okay, this is me, and all I can do is show up as the bridge that I am, right? Yeah. So I think we're about time. We have 3 minutes.
We have 3 minutes.
Yay.
And I want to really just shift it back to, we're in the very much modern world living as beautiful creations of Latin America and of the Americas.
And Turtle Island.
And all of it. And I think that we have to walk around with our heads held high, because we've been through a lot. Our ancestors have been through a lot, and our souls carry it. And so going out there, getting back to dating, you have to be very proud when you're brown and not care, about stereotypical beauty and what society says that should be worshipped as valuable. I think that's a huge thing that we carry on our shoulders, and that we should carry it with pride, that we've made it this far and we're advancing our people the best we can.
Yeah. And like, I guess all the people, because honestly, nowadays we're all mutts, right?
We are.
I have a little dog. She's not here with me today because I'm going somewhere after this. I miss her, my girasol.
Yeah.
She's straight up a mutt. I have no idea what she is, but dang, she's so cute, and I unconditionally love her. So she teaches me to love myself, mutt that I am. Ana, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for your important work. Shout out, tell Bernie I love him, and I'll forgive him if he runs again.
He might be a little old by 2020.
How old is he?
He's 74 right now. I think
dang.
75. And so by 2020, the guy would be pushing it a little bit.
Push it good. All right. Well, we still have a couple minutes, so I just want to tell the story of how I met Ana real fast.
Yeah.
I've been hired a few times by a really cool group around Denver called Barrio E, and they are a Puerto Rican bomba group.
Yes.
And I don't know if you guys know anything about bomba. It's this beautiful form of baile, of dance, where they have these skirts, and there's this parlay, this speech between the tambor, the drum, and the skirt of the dancer. So it's like a boom, 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 and the dancer, is leading the drums to where she goes. So sometimes one of the things I do is sing. It's part of my medicine way, and they've hired me to sing, even though I'm not Puerto Rican. So they opened for Las Cafeteras. Shout out Las Cafeteras, who are like a Chicano Jarocho group from LA.
So good.
So good. And it was so fun for me because they hired me, and I love bomba. It's amazing. But then Las Cafeteras came on, and they're like Chicano, and they're like zapateando and doing all this like, and I'm like, oh, my people. And I go out and I'm like zapateando with them, like, and zapatear is like with your feet. And anyways, they were playing, and I was like, I need someone to dance with. And I see this chica out there dancing, and I was like, hey, will you dance with me?
Yes.
And then she danced with me, and it was wonderful. And now we see each other on the dance floor
Pretty often.
And yeah, I don't go out a lot. When I go out, it's specifically to dance, because that's part of how I love myself.
Me too.
Is dancing.
So and shaking it, being free.
Yeah, we're actually going to go dancing right now. And it's going to be a great night.
It's going to be so good.
All right, so we shouting out WeAreDenver, hashtag WeAreDenver. Shout out Meet in the Street, hashtag Meet in the Street. That's happening every Saturday on the 16th Street Mall. I am Muse in Medicine. Follow me on Instagram or on YouTube if you want little tips about things like acne or circulation or loving your people better. And if you want to see this beautiful, lovely, and all of her selfie seductress magic, it's hashtag, or no, at ACTEMU.
Actemu.
Actemu is hers. And we thank you for being here. Please join in next week. I'm not sure who the guest is. If you want to be a guest, hit me up. Also, if you are a designer, jewelry maker, and you want me or my guests to wear any of your stuff, I'm into all things beautiful. Shout out to the Alchemy of Artemis Instagram. Shout out to Alchemy Ritual Goods. We didn't get to talking about alchemy today, but look up the word and see what it means. See how it can apply to your life. And have a beautiful, blessed, love-filled week, people. Peace. Night.